Hello and welcome. Now, renewable energy is gaining impetus in South Africa. We're speaking to a player in this industry today. I'm Nozipho Mbanjwa and this is Resource Watch. Here's a look at stories making headlines in the sector this week.
The delay in the commissioning of Eskom's Medupi power station has had negative effects on Exxaro Resources. The coal producer says it's revising the Grootegeluk Medupi expansion project, which is the 10 billion rand venture that supplies Eskom's facility. The announcement was made during the delivery of full-year results, which saw headline earnings fall 6%. Western Australia has lost its world #1 ranking for mining investment. Reasons cited are hefty royalty payments and taxes that could take up as much as 47% of mining companies' profits. The Fraser Institute's recent survey shows Finland is now #1. South Africa and Canada have signed a memorandum of understanding and cooperation on mining and mineral development. Mines Minister Nwako Ramatlhodi says the deal represents South Africa's commitment to global partnerships in development and serves to further encourage more Canadian and South African companies to cooperate.
Renewable energy company Mainstream Renewable Power has just announced the completion of financing for 3 wind farms to be built in South Africa, which will have a combined capacity of 360 megawatts. We're speaking to Peter Kriel. He is the group executive responsible for Thebe Power and Infrastructure, which has a stake in Mainstream. Peter, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Now, we've seen multiple rounds of the REAP program in South Africa. Talk us through what you were able to deliver in round 1.
Okay, I prefer to name them windows, bid windows, all part of round 1. But in window 1, I think we were very fortunate to be selected preferred bidder for 1 wind farm of 138 megawatts in Jeffreys Bay and 2 solar PV farms, one in Kimberley, one in the R, both 50 megawatts each. So that's a total of 238 megawatt, and they all have been producing power into the national grid since April and May of last year. So all very successful and all built within the budget.
What are you now taking into round 3 on the back of the lessons that you've obviously learned from your first initial window?
It's going to be a bit of a strange answer, but I think the answer is that we might not be participating in that many windows after the 3rd window because of the fact that the tariffs have become so low. One must remember that as a Black Economic Empowerment company, we also have to borrow our money to be able to invest. So if we don't get returns that are above the rates at which we have to borrow money, we just can't participate anymore. So what I've learned, obviously, which is excellent for South Africa, is the fact that the tariffs have come down so low since window 1. We must remember that during the stages that we went through before we actually completed the window 1 project or projects, that there was for specifically overseas investors quite a lot of risk involved because it's the first time that we see renewable energy in South Africa. So, but yes, I mean the tariffs have come down substantially from window 1 to window 3 where we are now.
Peter, how significant is the investment pullback? Because no doubt you're not the only player who's rethinking participating in these particular windows because of that tariff decrease just not making financial sense for you.
No, you see, Nosipo, the fact is that as an investor, it's becoming difficult for us, but you get companies that have other benefits. For instance, if they manufacture, for instance, solar PV panels, or they manufacture wind turbines, or they do EPC themselves, the contract for constructing of these plants, they have margins to be made elsewhere than just as an investor. So it might still make sense for them to continue with the program. But it's just as an investor for us, it's becoming difficult. But we're not moving away from the space because there are lots of other opportunities where we as Thebe can still play a big role. I'm thinking, for instance, like rooftop for solar panels, etc.
Let's talk about those solar panels for rooftops. There was a lot of criticism in South Africa that the space was being dominated by Chinese manufacturers and we weren't seeing local players getting their slice of the pie. To what extent has that picture changed?
Yeah, you see, if one looks at the total of what goes into a plant or a rooftop system, there are lots of other areas where we can have local manufacturing or local assembling. It's just at this stage still most of the panels themselves or the solar technology that comes from places like China, but it is starting to develop in South Africa. But it's difficult to say at this stage if it will be a sustainable future for manufacturers of those technologies.
I mean, we do have the Department of Trade and Industry as well as other government departments who are all focused on creating a conducive environment so that these local industries can develop. What do we need more of, Peter, to see the development of a local industry?
I think what will trigger this, Nosipho, is the fact that China, for instance, is already very active in South Africa. They are looking for more opportunities. So it will be a case of appetite in South Africa from local manufacturers to start and get the technology down in South Africa. And we are starting to see that already. The problem is just that technology, as you know, develops so fast that one does not really know at this stage if solar PV will be the future of rooftops. We're already seeing other technologies that I don't want to talk about at this stage. But the question is, as I say, solar PV might not be the solution necessarily.
And I do hope that there will be an opportunity to revisit what those options are. But let's talk about the appetite for funding. It sounds as if the development finance institutions should be the ones who are filling the space in terms of bringing the funding to the table. Is this happening, Peter?
Yes and no. As TEBE, we have been funded by the Development Bank of South Africa, which we're very glad about when it was still in the developmental phases. We have been able, because of the fact that the Development Bank of South Africa did not give us the ideal solution for funding if one looks at the type of funding that we required. For instance, we get our income from the project in the form of dividends, and we had to take a normal loan from the development bank. So we have been fortunate enough to refinance both Window 1 projects and a substitute development bank for our Window 3 finance, which we are very glad about, because we have been able to structure those funding packages so that it meets our requirements if one looks at tax neutrality, etc.
And of course, funding is just one part of this equation. What about the policy environment? Are you seeing the support that is required for the development of the industry in that regard?
Yeah, the only issue, as you know, is, and we eagerly await announcement of the Window 4 preferred bidders, but as you are probably aware, the issue has become the connectivity to the national grid, which has become very competitive, and the fact is that it's very costly if you're not close to a connection to then construct the connection possibilities. So and that will take time. I think a possible solution would be if Eskom would be more willing to let the private participants construct their own connectivity to the grid.
Peter, it's always lovely having you on the show, and thank you so much for those insights. Here's a look at our gem of the week.
As South Africa battles a threatening electricity crisis, this power plant situated in the country's Northern Cape province provides a much-needed boost to the national grid.
Temperatures here in Katlu can peak to up to 50 degrees Celsius, making this place the ideal location to generating solar power.
The capacity produced at this plant can power up to 80,000 homes. The facility can also store up to 2 hours of electricity through its unique STE technology.
Power plants can also provide energy when it's needed, day or night, cloudy or bright. STE plants provide ancillary services such as spinning and regulating reserves and frequency and voltage support, and they can handle rapid increases or decreases in power output, known as ramping. And with thermal energy storage, these plants can offer increased flexibility by providing dispatchable energy whenever it's needed.
The 8 billion rand investment was made by a number of South African corporates, an international investor, Spanish firm Abengoa, and the country's development finance institution, the Industrial Development Corporation, which has set a mandate to invest in renewable energy. The local community has a 20% stake in the project.
For us as a development finance institutions, we have to promote and support innovation. That is why we embraced it. We said it's a new technology. We looked at what it offers. It offers the ability to store energy, and that is what we want. And that's why we gave it a chance. And we've invested 2.2 billion rand. In that 2.2 billion, it's IDC's share of the 29%, because we have 29% of the project. And then we also funded the community for 20%, because if you remember, the community did say when they came to this project, they did not have the funding. But we also know that it's a requirement for them to be part of it. So we funded them as well.
South Africa plans to generate roughly 18,000 megawatts of renewable energy by the year 2030. The country's economic development minister says this is also an opportunity to further strengthen ties within the BRICS developing nations grouping.
Increasingly, BRICS countries are showing the know-how and the appetite to enter the renewable energy space. So I think in future we're going to see a lot more activity from BRICS countries in renewable energy.
Christine Mundwa, CNBC Africa, Katlu, in the Northern Cape.
And that's it for this week's show. Do stay in touch. Follow me at The Real Nosy. And don't forget that our hashtag is ResourceWatch. Until next time, it's goodbye.